Hi, my name's Greer Lacey and I'm a volunteer at Jackson's Animal Rescue, and today I'm going to tell you about the many hedgehogs we have in here today. So we have 4 wards. This is our intensive care unit where lots of hedgehogs go into incubators if they're very, very small or very, very poorly. And most of the hedgehogs in here will have medicine, so we have to be very quiet and very tidy in here. Our isolation room where the hedgehogs in here are very, very poorly and need specialist medicine. And this is our ward 1 where all the hedgehogs in here are nice and fat and healthy, and most of them are ready to go back to where they came from if possible, or we find new gardens where there are lots of other hedgehogs for them to play with. We've had a lot of questions sent in from some of you that I'm hopefully going to answer for you now. The first 3 are all about hibernation, how a hedgehog hibernates and when does it hibernate and how long does it hibernate for. Well, people used to think hedgehogs hibernated all winter, but because of climate change and various differences in habitats, we now know that hedgehogs don't hibernate throughout the winter. Hedgehogs need to be about 600 to 650 grams to survive a long hibernation, but people think these days they might go to sleep for a couple of weeks and then wake up and want a snack, just like you might do in the middle of the night if you feel hungry, and then they go back to sleep and maybe wake up again. So if you have hedgehogs in your garden, you need to keep biscuits and water out for them in the winter, because when they do go into hibernation, they lose a lot of their weight. They can lose 1/3 of their body weight, and they lose a lot of weight trying to wake up as well. So hedgehogs really need to be fattened up for the winter, and they might, if they sleep all winter, they might be in their hibernation nests from December until about March, depending on the weather. The next questions are all about what hedgehogs like to eat. If they're in your garden, they love the bugs. They like to eat beetles best. People think they like slugs, but slugs, if they had the choice, would be fairly well down their menu. In the hog centre, we do not have lots of bugs and slugs and things, so we give the hedgehogs cat, dog, puppy or kitten food and cat or dog biscuits, only if they're small bite ones though. They don't like chocolate digestives and they are carnivorous. Now there's a big word. That means they like to eat meat, and some people say you can't give them fish flavoured cat food, but that's fine. Fish is meat, they will love it. So if you want to encourage hedgehogs into your garden, leave them a bowl of cat or dog food, bowl of water and some biscuits, and they will come and visit your garden every night. And another really good question is, how big do they grow? When we get some of our tiny little hoglets in, that's the name that babies are called, they can be about 36 grams, some of the smallest ones we've had, which are really tiny like that. As I said before, we release them at about 600 to 650 grams, but some of them grow up to well over 1 kilo, which is a bit like a small football. And I have to apologise to you all here because I'm not showing you any hedgehogs. That is because we are a hospital. We're looking after poorly hedgehogs and hedgehogs that have got problems with walking or other things, and they are, if I picked one up, it would curl up into a ball because it's terrified of you. You are a predator. That is something that's going to hurt it. So while we're here, although we've got nearly 70 hedgehogs in at the moment, and we'll get a lot more in the winter, we don't pick them up and cuddle them, we don't play with them, we simply lift them out of their box or their cage in the morning, weigh them every day because that is very important to check that they're putting on weight properly, give them a nice clean bed, clean food and clean water, and put them back. Sorry to have stopped filming there, but luckily for you as watchers, we've just had a little hedgehog brought in. People can bring us hedgehogs any time of the day from 9 till 5, and we also have a phone number that you can contact that will always be answered. And this little hedgehog's come in this little box, and I'm going to lift him out and weigh him. Or her, because we don't know whether it's a boy or a girl yet. And you see what I said? He will curl up into a ball because he's actually terrified. And this one doesn't look as if he's got any injuries. He hasn't got any little wounds, or he hasn't got any little ticks on him. And he doesn't look as if he's got blood coming from anywhere. But he shouldn't be out in the daytime. If ever you see a hedgehog out in the daytime, it's poorly. It needs to come to one of the sanctuaries on the Wirral. So let's see what weight he is. So I'm going to pop him in these scales. And he weighs 247 grams. So each hedgehog has an admission sheet where we write all his information on. And I'm going to write that his weight is 240 grams, 247 grams. Okay, we've made up a little box to put him in with lots of nice warm newspaper, and he's got a bowl of kitten food and biscuits and water. And in a minute, because he looks, if you look at him, he's not nice and round and fat like a football. He looks a bit like a rugby ball. So we know that he's dehydrated. That means he needs water, and he can't drink a glass of water. So we have to give him an injection with special medicine in to help him get better. So I'm going to pop him in his box now, and we're going to stop filming for a couple of minutes so we can give him his fluids, and then I'll come back to you. So our little hedgehog is called Tommy. He's had his fluids, and he's going to be tucked up in here for now. But something that's really, really important to us, and you will all go, eee, horrible, but it's really important to us. In his little box, he's done a poo. Right? So what we have to do is get a little sample of that, because some of our shift leaders are very clever at looking down a microscope and having a look at the poo to see what's making the hedgehog poorly. And then when we know what's making him poorly, we can give him the right medicine. Another really good question is how many spines does a hedgehog have? Well, it has between 5,000 and 7,000 spines, and they're there really to protect it from predators. Now, predators, that's a big long word. That means things that might hurt a hedgehog. And really, in the wild world, there's only a badger that would hurt a hedgehog, and only if the badger was very, very hungry. The real predator to the hedgehogs are us, people, because we don't look after them properly. Hedgehogs need to live in hedgerows, so the farmers and fields don't have fields anymore where there are hedges. Lots of gardens are paved over and have plastic grass on these days. Front gardens are tarmacked, and hedgehogs like to walk perhaps 2 miles a night. I bet that's a lot further than you'd walk in a day. So they need to be able to walk through all the gardens, but lots of gardeners like to have perfect fences so nothing can get in. So the hedgehogs are in decline. That means their numbers are getting smaller and smaller. So about 20 years ago, there used to be about 33 million hedgehogs. Now there's only about 1 million. So we have to look after them. Everybody has to try and help them. Another question is, where do hedgehogs come from? Well, there are 17 different varieties of hedgehog in the world. The hedgehogs that we look after here are called European hedgehogs. So they all come from there. You might have a pygmy hedgehog. They come from a very hot country and need to be looked after in a very different way from our hedgehogs. Some people are not very sure on how long a hedgehog might live, and we have people that visit us quite a lot with hedgehogs, and they say, oh, this hedgehog's been in my garden for the last 7 years. Well, it might have been. We don't really know how to age a hedgehog apart from looking at its teeth, and I'm not sure I'd like to open his mouth and do that. I wouldn't like to get a bite. But there has been some special scientists in Europe who are very, very worried about the decline of hedgehogs, and they've done some research and they found out that hedgehogs can live up to about 13 years old if they're looked after properly. One other question was, how many babies does a hedgehog have? If you were listening very carefully before, you heard me say that a baby hedgehog was called a hoglet. So a hedgehog can have anything between 1 and 10 hoglets in a litter, and they might have 2 lots of babies in the year, 2 lots of hoglets in the year, one in the spring and one in the autumn. And that's why we've got lots of problems at the moment here, because the hedgehogs that are born in the autumn are very, very tiny and probably will not be able to survive a hibernation if they went into one. So we get lots of them coming in from now until maybe January that are all tiny, and they will be with us until they're fat enough to go out in the spring. People ask if you can keep hedgehogs as pets. These sort of hedgehogs is no, no, no. They are wild animals. You might have them in the garden, and that is lovely. Some gardens even have little cameras that you can watch them, and if you put food out for them, you will see them when it's dark at night. But please do not keep these hedgehogs as pets. They are not pets to be looked after like you would have a cat or a dog. They don't like being picked up, they don't like being cuddled. Next questions are all about looking after hedgehogs, what you do if you find one that's poorly. If you see a hedgehog out in the daytime, it needs to come to a specialist sanctuary. Vets don't really know how to look after them, and they will often send them straight to us. If you see a hedgehog wobbling, doing little circles, or sunbathing, it's very, very poorly. It needs to come in straight away. The only time you might see a hedgehog in the daytime, if it's a mum getting ready to make a nest, and then she will look busy looking for leaves and sticks to make a nice nest with. Last question is, how can you help to keep hedgehogs safe? Ask your mum or dad to make a little hole in your fence if you haven't got one, so the hedgehogs can come through, and put food and water out for them. In the autumn time, be very, very careful when you're getting all your leaves swept up out of the garden, because there might be a hedgehog that's made a little nest in there and is going to sleep. The problem in the spring is that lots of people use strimmers, and these cause very, very bad injuries to hedgehogs. So before your mums and dads, grannies and granddads use strimmers, please check the garden for any hedgehogs. Another thing I should have mentioned when we were talking about feeding earlier, please never give hedgehogs mealworms. They absolutely love them, but there's no nutritional value in them, and they can actually make hedgehogs have problems with their bones. Also, they shouldn't have peanuts or sunflower seeds, and never give them milk. They are lactose intolerant. As we get hoglets in, they get a special puppy formula, as obviously we can't buy hedgehog milk in Sainsbury's. So if you can remember those few tips, because they are very important. Please follow us on our social media. There are many different forms, for instance Facebook and Instagram, and we do accept donations. We are a small charity, and if it wasn't for the public and kindness of people, we wouldn't be running. We would love it if you could perhaps get some donations to us. Money's always wonderful, but we know people don't have a lot of that at the moment. But cat food, dog food, biscuits, paper towels, plastic gloves, decent bin liners, because we have a lot of waste, are all things that are needed. In case any of you are worried looking at other videos you've seen on this little film this afternoon, apart from the hedgehog that came in a few minutes ago, all the other videos were taken when the animals were being cleaned out, so we're awake just at that time. We never disturb them unless they're just being cleaned out and weighed. Thank you.